Hey, lovely leaders. Welcome to the Not Your Dad's Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey, your go to girly for all things feminine leadership, self love, and soft skill integration. How have you been? How are things going? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being patient with me as I was getting this episode out. I was out of town for 2 weeks and then I caught a pretty bad cold on my flight home and I was just coughing and hacking and I could barely talk. So I'm sure you didn't want to hear that. I literally just started feeling like I could talk longer than like 5 minutes without like hacking and dying just a couple days ago. So it felt like it was a really long cold, and I am just really grateful that I'm starting to feel better. But yeah, I was back in Iowa helping my BFF take care of her baby. He turned 9 months while I was there, and it was just such a whirlwind trip. And I learned, so much about myself and children and parenting. And I don't know if it's ever been talked about or said, but I have no children, or if we have new listeners, like I have no children. So it was so fun. It was a lot to learn. But yeah, I'm still processing everything, but I feel like it was really a trip that I needed. I think, the biggest thing I learned was that I am capable of so much more than I thought I was, and that my life can be so much fuller while still taking care of myself and prioritizing myself. And to be completely open and honest, I think I have adopted this mindset in the last few years that the last time I was super busy and go, 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 I didn't like who I was and I didn't really enjoy my life. So I've really leaned into a more gentle, slower lifestyle. But I've learned so much since that old lifestyle. And this trip really did prove to myself that I can navigate something new while still, being true to myself and still taking care of myself. Like I had so much fun. I was stressed at some times, but I was capable and I got through it just fine. And I think sometimes we just need that reminder, or we need those challenges of like getting out of our normal rhythm and just challenging ourselves a little bit more. And it shows us what we're capable of. So, and gives us that confidence. But yeah, and it was just so special to see like my best friends who I've been friends with, since elementary school, and how they care for their families while also working full time, and just, how strong of women they are. And I hope they know that just, by them being themselves and doing what they do, that they are really inspiring others. So, and I got to see my family, which is always so special. So, yeah, it was a very eye-opening trip for me, and I have a lot to think about and a lot to process, but it was just such a special, like unforgettable time. So, okay, let's get into this week's episode. So, today we're diving into a conversation that's not always easy to have, but it's so necessary. The impact of the patriarchy and internalized misogyny on how we lead and show up in the workplace. And when we talk about the patriarchy, we're talking about a system that has historically prioritized male power and perspectives. It's not just about one individual man or group of men. It's a societal structure that shapes everything from workplace norms to messages we get from the media. And it doesn't just affect women, it affects everyone, including men. And internalized misogyny, that's when those external beliefs become part of our own thinking, often without us even realizing it. It can show up as self doubt, people pleasing, or holding ourselves to impossible standards. But it doesn't just affect how we see ourselves, it also impacts how we view and treat other women. whether it's questioning their success, struggling to celebrate their wins, or feeling like there's only room for one woman at the table. These patterns run deep. I see it every day, and I am guilty as well. So, awareness is power. When we recognize these patterns, we can start making conscious choices that align with who we really are, not who we've been conditioned to be. And let's be honest, as women, we're leading during a time when these conversations are more important than ever. From the workplace to the world stage, the way we lead is shifting. But to be a part of that change, we have to understand what we're up against and how we can break free. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about how society makes it easy to uphold the patriarchy, ways we might be holding women back, and what we can do instead. We'll also touch on how privilege plays into this and what real solidarity looks like. So, have you ever wondered when we started seeing other women as competition instead of friends? Like, when did it become normal to size each other up instead of cheer each other on? Honestly, it starts so much earlier than we think. As girls, we're taught to be nice, accommodating, and well behaved, while boys are encouraged to be bold and assertive. And when girls show that same confidence, suddenly we are bossy or too much. And in the constant pressure to compare, like who's the prettiest, the smartest, the most popular, it's no surprise that we start seeing other women as threats instead of allies. And, this doesn't just happen at school or while we're growing up, it follows us into the workplace. The world loves to push the idea that there's only so much room for women at the top. Like we're all fighting for one single spot. Like, think about how often the media pits successful women against each other. If two women are thriving in the same space, suddenly it's a competition. Meanwhile, men are celebrated for building networks and mentoring each other. It's like we've been sold this lie that supporting another woman somehow makes us less successful when really, the opposite is true. This system benefits from keeping us divided. When we compete with each other, we're distracted from questioning the structures that made us feel like we had to in the first place. That's why conversations like this are so important. The more we name it, the more we can shift it. Imagine what could happen if we stopped seeing each other as threats and started seeing each other as teammates. Because when one woman rises, it opens doors for all of us. And that is leadership. And I talk all the time about how we hold ourselves back. The mindset, the beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves that keep us playing small. But since we are wrapping up Women's History Month, I want to talk about something a little different because the truth is sometimes we're not just holding ourselves back, we are holding other women back too. And most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. So, I'm going to share 5 ways you might be unconsciously holding other women back at work. And there is no judgment here, like no shame. This is all just awareness because when we know better, we can do better. And if we really want to transform the workplace for women, it starts with how we show up for each other right now. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first one, judging other women for who they are as leaders. Have you ever, said she's too emotional, she's too aggressive? Like, does that sound familiar? Women in leadership just can't seem to win. If we show vulnerability, we're weak. If we assert ourselves, we're intimidating. And because we've internalized these double standards, we end up judging other women more harshly, even when we don't mean to. So the next time you catch yourself critiquing another woman's leadership style, just take a pause and ask yourself, like, why do her emotions or assertiveness affect me so much? And how can I accept her for who she is as a leader without judgment? And recognizing that bias is powerful and it's how we start making space for more authentic leadership. Okay, the second one, seeing women as competition. We were raised on, the one seat at the table energy. Like there's only room for one woman to succeed. And when that belief runs deep, we see other women as competition instead of potential collaborators. And that scarcity mindset, it's not our fault. Like I said, it's how our system and society are set up, but it is our responsibility to unlearn it. And actually, yesterday, as the same day I was writing the outline for this episode, I was listening to the Financial Feminist podcast, and she had a newer SNL writer on, and her name is Kiara O'Sullivan. That's really hard. Kiara O'Sullivan. She wrote the Domingo sketch that went viral last year. But anyways, the host, Tori, asked her, if you could go back in time and give yourself any advice, what would it be? And she answered, I think I would tell myself to be less competitive with other women. And I just thought that was so powerful and so vulnerable of her to admit. And yes, comedy is a, very competitive industry. But for her to go back and, realize that she could have been uplifting women instead of seeing them as her competition, I thought was so powerful for her to say. So I totally felt her on that. And I'm really guilty of this in the past as well, especially when I started my business. But one huge mindset shift I started adopting was looking at someone, even if it is a man or a woman. But mostly, we're jealous of other women or have that scarcity mindset with other women. I started telling myself, if she can do it, I can do it too. Like they aren't my competition, they are inspiration. And how can we work together to lift each other up instead of tear each other down? How can we celebrate other women and their accomplishments without knowing it doesn't take away from our success? Like when I see another woman who is powerful and, reached the top or whatever, I don't even know. We all have our own definitions of success, but that doesn't take anything away from me. And I am proud of this woman. And I know I can get there too. So that's just a mindset I've really started taking. And it's made, my comparison just so much better. And, we all have our own battles with ourselves. So that's what I work on now. But I am so glad that I just took that whole facet of trying to survive day to day out, and my mind can focus on myself and what I'm doing. So, okay. Third, expecting women to prove themselves more and holding them to unrealistic expectations. Have you ever noticed how women are often held to a higher standard? We have to be overqualified just to get a seat at the table, while men are often trusted just on potential alone. And sometimes we unknowingly reinforce that. And maybe it's questioning a woman's decision making a little more or feeling like she needs to earn her spot. But just as a reminder, if she's in the room, she's qualified to be there. I mean, unless she's like a Nepo hire. And even then, let's just give her a chance, okay? Trust her, believe in her leadership the first time, support her. And the more we normalize that, the faster we can start to break the cycle. Let go of perfection and just trust in women's abilities. And you can ask yourself, kind of like a little check in, is she actually ineffective? Or am I holding her to a different standard? And recognizing that is powerful. And that's how we just start changing those beliefs like day by day. It's just checking in with ourselves and asking ourselves those questions. Okay, number 4, not speaking up for other women. It's one thing to notice unfair treatment, and it's another to say something. Maybe you've seen a woman get interrupted in a meeting or watch someone else take credit for her ideas, but staying silent, that is how those patterns are going to keep repeating. Be the one who amplifies her voice. Call out interruptions with a simple, I'd love to hear her finish, or I'd be interested to hear her ideas. And when credit is due, say it loud and clear. That was her idea and it was brilliant. Little shifts like that change everything. Okay, the last one, gatekeeping success. We've all heard, that I had to figure it out the hard way, so she should have to too mentality. But keeping knowledge, resources, or mentorship to ourselves just reinforces the system. And the truth is, when one of us rises, we all do. So don't be the one to climb the corporate ladder and pull it up behind you. Offer mentorship, make introductions, share what you've learned. Success isn't a limited resource. And the more we lift each other up, the more unstoppable we become. So to recap these 5 ways we might be holding other women back. They are judging other women for who they are as leaders, seeing women as competition, holding women to unrealistic standards, not speaking up for other women, and gatekeeping success. And while I spoke on small shifts that we can do within each of the 5 of those, I think overall, just redefining what leadership means is so important. And within the system of the patriarchy, and we're told what leadership is supposed to look like, and that isn't working anymore. So we really need to redefine it in our own terms and in our own way, and what that means for us and what that means for women in general. And leadership can no longer stand to be like dominant and emotionless. And we just need to start changing the narrative around what a leader looks like. And we are doing that here on this podcast, and we are doing it on my channels on social media and through emails. So I really hope that, the ripple effect that the leaders in our community have will be beautiful. So we can also advocate for workplace policies. And that just means, like equal pay, flexible working hours, maternal and paternal leave, healthcare. So just advocate for those workplace policies, put them out there and, see what happens. So before we start to wrap up, I also want to just take a moment to acknowledge something really important, that not all women experience these systems in the same way. Our challenges are shaped by so many factors: race, disability, and LGBTQ identity, just to name a few. These intersecting identities can create additional barriers and struggles that some women face. And it's crucial that we don't lose sight of that when we're talking about the ways that we can hold each other back. And as a straight white woman, I am totally aware of the privilege I have in navigating these spaces. I'm not an expert on intersectionality, nor do I think I should be the one speaking on it, but I do know that it's important to recognize my privilege and commit to listening, learning, and supporting those whose experiences are different than mine. We all need to do better, and it starts with creating space for and uplifting the voices of women who don't share the same privileges. So we always want to be mindful of the gaps that exist in these conversations and keep seeking out diverse perspectives. It's not just about doing better for ourselves, it's about doing better for all of us. All right, girlies. So, this episode wasn't meant to scare you or make you doubt yourself or make you feel like you have to be perfect and practice these all the time, nor is it an episode for you to just start like hating on men. We all suffer from this system. So it's just a starting place to be aware and reflect on our own personal behavior and open our eyes to others' behavior and how they might be navigating their own personal beliefs within the system. But at the end of the day, we can only control ourselves. So let's, of course, start there. Be curious, be compassionate, and be honest and forgiving with yourself. So, how will you be changing your thoughts or actions this week regarding how you support women? Even if it's just one small action or, retraining your thought systems and beliefs around this. What's it going to be? Oh, and one last big thing I want to add. Supporting women does not mean excusing bad behavior. I've worked for women-owned companies and women CEOs that promised empowerment, and they had these inspiring stories, but those same women still made the workplace absolutely unbearable. So use discretion and boundaries where necessary. Like, we can give these women compassion while still just not tolerating disrespect. Okay. So supporting women does not mean excusing bad behavior. Say it over and over again. Supporting women does not mean excusing bad behavior. Okay, so that's it. If this episode or any past episode has resonated with you, please share it. Share it with your friends, family, or even your coworkers. And y'all are just the best. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye.